This episode is made possible by Shankspace. When you need a prison shank, and you need one now, turn to the good people at Shankspace. I'm going to get started by preparing my work area. Now, if you see these scratches, they exist solely because I wasn't smart enough to get one of these in the past. This is a self-healing cutting mat. Comes in very handy. And it even says self-healing cutting mat up there in the corner. I like to use the dark side for light material, and the material I'll be starting out with is quite light. I will be beginning with these 30 sheets of paper. And these come from the Blix Multimedia Collection. And I like these because if I tear them out sloppily, just kind of rip them out as if I'd been on a bender for a couple of days, if I do that, I wind up getting this nice edge right here. Very messy edge, which makes the outside of the book kind of look older, kind of gives it a weird, interesting look. So I like that. Now I'm going to take 3 sheets, groups of 3 sheets of paper, and I'm going to make what's called a signature. A signature is just a collection of sheets of paper that are folded. And if you drop any old book and it shatters, you'll see them. And there they are, 3. I'm 3 sheets to the wind at this point. Okay, once I get them all straightened out, I begin to gently roll them, give them a little back and forth. This will help you later on when you go and you press down and you fold them completely in half. And another thing that will help you is this. This is a bone folder. I know, it looks like a Sharpie. That's because it's also a Sharpie. It's a Sharpie that I sanded the Sharpie logo off of because I didn't want that to get all over the white paper. I don't know who thought of this first, but someone else, it wasn't me, thought of the idea of taking a Sharpie and turning it into a bone folder. I've tried to use a bone folder. The Sharpie just gives me a lot more control. It's a lot closer to my heart. All right, here I am. I've taken 3 more sheets of paper. We'll move faster later on, but right now I just want you folks to get used to the idea of folding paper. Something you can do in your spare time. All right, using the bone folder. And I began to think as I did this, did I use 3 sheets of paper or 2 sheets of paper? So I'm checking it. And I see there are 3 sheets of paper, but I began to think, does the book want me to add another sheet of paper? And also, if you folks do accidentally use 2 sheets instead of 3 sheets, if you're making 3-sheet signatures, what you can do is just add one, kind of like what I'm doing here. Although I'm adding one because the book was telling me. I do whatever the book tells me. So we're going to add the extra signature, and we're going to seal that down. Now, each sheet of paper makes 4 pages. If there are 3 sheets per signature, that's 12 pages. And then, if there are 10 signatures, that's 120 pages. Except in this case, where we have 124 pages, there could be more coming a little bit later on. Okay, here we go. This is signature number 5. And this is an important signature for me because this is the middle of the book. This is 5 out of my 10 signatures, and I like to do something a little different in the middle of the book. What I like to do is add an extra piece of paper. So if you're keeping count, we're at 128 pages right now. And since this is a book for a green witch, we're going to use this awesome ivy. And we're going to fold that over. Very gently now. You don't want your home to explode because you created friction. That'll happen. You read about it a lot in the paper. And put this over here, and I'm going to zip through these next signatures. we go. We have 10 signatures. Yes, we can count to 10. There used to be a guy in my town that everybody used to say was so dumb that he could only count to 21 by getting naked. But we're just going to double check. Oh, there's that lovely middle signature. Put that down there. And we're going to use a piercing cradle now, sometimes called a stabbing cradle. I didn't come up with this design. I wish I had, but there's a guy who has a YouTube channel called 4 Keys Book Arts, and he came up with this. I recommend you go there. He did a great thing with taking all of his old Dungeons and Dragons books and then hard covering them, and it's a work of art. It's an absolute bit of beauty. Okay, that's all lined up. Now I'm going to take my guide. My guide is used to punch holes in the signatures. I like 7 holes in my signature. Now, you'll see at the top of this guide, there's a little bit of print there. That's how I can make sure it's the head of the guide, because those little dashes, they're 1 inch apart. From the top to the first dash is about 1 3/8 inches, and then from the bottom to the last dash is about 1.5 inches. So you want to keep an eye on which is the top and which is the bottom. Okay, place your signature in the cradle. Make sure that it's firm against the head of the cradle. And then you're going to take out one of these. This right here is an awl, and if you're going to be using anything that's sharp, particularly if you're going to put it in your toolbox or in your art collection, you're going to want to put a cork on the top of it. This is a cork from a Snoop Dogg champagne bottle. I like to call it the Snoop Dogg of Turin. All right, here we go. Let's start stabbing. It's a good feeling. Here we go. And as I stab, I like to go, lobotomy, lobotomy. But I can't do it too many times, otherwise I'm looking at a copyright strike. Here it is from another angle. Same thing, but different. We're going to put the top of, and again, orientation, very important. You'll see as the video goes along, keeping these things oriented so I know what's the top, what's the bottom, because of that difference in the spacing. Okay, here we go. And let's get to stabbing. Even if you don't make a book, just try doing this at some time, putting this together and do it. It just feels really good for some reason. Maybe I need professional help. I'm not quite sure. Oh, by the way, I'd like to thank the folks at Shank Space for giving me the awe. One. And you may have noticed that I always take from the bottom of the pile and I move towards the top. Those are beautiful. That's a work of art right there. All right, I'm going to put this in here, and that is the top of the pile. And I'm now going to disassemble let's just call it the stabbing cradle, not the piercing cradle. Sounds like the worst daycare center ever. Drop your kids off at the stabbing cradle. And I'm going to put my shroud of Snoop Dogg, or Snoop Dogg of Turin, on the end of the awl, so I don't accidentally poke a hole through my hand, get a stigmata. All right, this is not a medieval torture device. This is actually going to be my book press. And I'm going to get rid of, I practiced stabbing on that board right there. You may have noticed. Okay, so again, the orientation is very, very important, and you're going to see that I have marked the top and the bottom because I really have to keep those things straight, and so will you folks if you're making books. I'm going to take these, even them out, tap them a few times, and line them up. And the reason we press these books is because we get swell. Every time we puncture a book or when we add the bookbinding thread, we wind up, the book gets a little bit bigger on the spine. So we have to combat that. And the way we do that, again, medieval torture devices. This is another sad, like this piercing cradle. This is really satisfying to do this. I don't know why. Maybe because I just love the look of these clamps. They've got that wrought iron combined with the brass screws. Here we go. Put these on. Confess! Confess! Where are you hiding the Protestants? You know, I should really take this, because it's got kind of a steampunk vent. I should really make it a little more steampunk. I should make it a little bit nicer. I didn't know anybody was going to see it. But again, it is just kind of satisfying crushing this thing down. Just smashing it down into little pieces. Releases a lot of tension. All right, I'm going to hide the rubber band in my pocket because we have a cat that eats them. And she's cost us about $600 in vet bills doing that. We're now going to cover the signatures in a washi kozo, which is a fine Japanese mulberry paper. And I may cover that in some fish gelatin, completely reversible. And I'm going to add to this mixture a black cat. There she is. That's the one that eats the rubber bands. Do a little spell. And thank you for your service, kitty. You are no longer needed, and you may wander off and do whatever you do. I'm going to set this aside for a little bit, and we're going to start it on the covers. Now, these are chipboard, and I'm just banging them together because my friend Rob Zabrecki is a magician, and I'm sure just to show there's no tricks there. We're going to be using this green tape, duct tape, because this is, you'll note also, it's thinner than my black duct tape. And we have some white duct tape. The white duct tape, we'll do that. We'll make a book for a white witch, give it to Stevie Nicks. The whole thing with Stevie Nicks, by the way, you know that, remember the song Rhiannon? I don't remember that or not. For years, I thought this correctly, that she was saying, this is a song about an old Welsh witch. That's it, an old Welsh witch. And then somebody got all up in my face, and they were like, no, this is a song about a white witch. And I walked around saying that for a long time, and then I found out, no, it's correct. This is like how little I cared that the Internet's been around forever, and I just got around a few years ago to looking this up, and I was like, oh, no, this is a song about an old Welsh witch. So I kept repeating that before every song on a Milkman tour, and we were in Detroit, and this woman came up afterwards and gave me a Stevie Nicks tarot card. And then I took that and I sort of decoupaged it into the top of the container in which I keep a lot of my book-making materials. So somehow Stevie Nicks plays a role in this. Right. Make sure you give yourself plenty of room here. It doesn't matter too much that it goes well over, because we're going to be covering all of this up with a fine washi kozo, a strong Japanese mulberry paper. All right, here we go. And I'm going to take the bone folder / Sharpie, and I'm just going to straighten that out. Even though it's going to get covered up, it won't make too much of a mess. But you got a Sharpie bone folder, you got to use it. By the way, this tape, this green duct tape, it smells like lemons. It smells really good. And let's give ourselves some space. Another good thing about the self-healing mat is that the tape doesn't stick to it horrendously, just enough. You know, the people at the Sharpie company should market like a bone folder. You should just say Sharpie / bone folder. And we're going to put because there's a little gap there. As you saw earlier, this is thinner than the usual black tape I use. But that actually works itself out, because what we're going to do is we're going to completely seal the book. No, give yourself more room. Give yourself more room. Yes, that's better. And again, it sticks just enough. And we're just going to fold this over, and that will completely seal up the chipboard, keeping it safe from Viking invasion or something. Trim off the excess. Trim it off from this side. It'll photograph better. Okay. And we've got one more piece to add on this cover. If you spend all day pulling on duct tape, it's really good for your arms. You will feel it. And again, the goal here is to kind of encase pretty much all the sides of the duct tape of the chipboard. Go out and get a roll. This duct tape's like $8 a roll. It's a little expensive, but just go out and go somewhere where they have it and just smell it. Also, for the video, I started the roll of duct tape because if I could have a whole hour-long video of me just trying to peel the duct tape off the beginning of the roll. You have to factor that into your project time. And once again, we're going to trim off the excess. All right, looking good. Okay. That kind of reminds me of the Moonanites from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I realized that while I was working on it. It's the shape of the Moonanites. All right, let's zip through making another one of these. Now I'm going to sign my work. I don't really think of myself as an artist, but apparently I do make art, and I guess this art has value. And besides, my father used to sign his artwork, so I guess I'm genetically predisposed to signing it. Pablo Picasso. Now for the inside of the book covers, I'm going to use this paper right here. And I went with this because it's got phases of the moon on it, and all green witches love phases of the moon. I'm using Mod Podge, which is probably going to upset some people in the comments. They'll be like, you should be using conservation grade PVC. No, I'm using the Mod Podge because I had it laying around. And I'll also be using the spongy brush. And I'm going to liberally apply this. Really kind of brings out the signature, which doesn't matter. The signature is going to be hidden, but the things you discover when you make things. And let's sit the paper on there. We got to eye this up. Doesn't have to be perfect, but if it is, it would really help. Seal that down with our bone folder Sharpie, Jim, Bob, Joe, Mariella, Sue, Boy, John, Walton thing. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Oh, I'm going to show this to you first because this will help me orient it, because I know that in the upper left-hand corner of the back cover is the full moon. It'll be in the upper right-hand corner of the front cover. Now I'm going to put some black tape above the back, because black begins with B, as does back. Make sure that's all pressed down. I'm going to bring back my guide, which will help me keep these things oriented. I have to keep my eye on what is the top and what is the bottom. And again, the front cover will have the full moon in the upper right when it's ready, and the back cover will have a full moon in the upper left. So I came back later to check on them, and it didn't look quite right to me, so I got some more decoupage and decided to cover these again. Sometimes I'll just walk away for a little bit, and I'll come back. I followed the words of the Humongous. Just walk away. Now my spies tell me you are planning to take the fuel out of the desert. This isn't nearly as relaxing as stabbing things or turning the screws on the press. I've come back again, and it looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to put it under weight right now. And the weight I'm going to first choose is a book called Forerunners and Rivals of Christianity, and also Philadelphia, a 300-year history. And I'm going to put all that under a sketchy power block that I got from China. Weighs about as much as 5 bricks. And I'm going to go out to lunch with my wife and some friends. So I'll be back in a little bit. All right, I'm back from lunch with my wife and our friends. I'm going to take the weight off. This is like 5 hours later, by the way. It was a long lunch. And I'm going to check and make sure these are nice and flat. And they appear to be. And you'll notice that guide is always around, always letting me know what's the top and what's the bottom. I do not want to screw that up. Hey, it's Lenore. You see that? Down the corner. Lenore the cat just came by again. Now, I'm going to measure in about 1/2 inch. And that is so I can start putting the holes in for the bindings that'll go through the back. And I'm going to use this white pen because, A, it's easy to see it, and also it's pretty much also like paint, so I can wipe it off later. And here I go. Mark a half inch there. And I'll mark a 1/2 inch here. Then I'll get my guide. And I'll line it up. And I will put a little mark next to each one of those tick marks. And these are where I'll be punching the holes that'll be used for the binding on the covers. So as I picked up the book, I noticed something interesting. The little white marks appear where the binding will go, right next to the full moons. Right, bang, right on. So the book is telling me something. The book is speaking to me. Right? Once again, I want to get out my Snoop Dogg of Tor and Awe. And I always want to thank the nice folks at Shank Space for providing this. Sometimes you're in the big house, you need a prison shank, you don't have time to make one. You don't know what you're doing. Just contact Shank Space. They'll deliver one soon, fairly soon. right there, right there. They hit right on the full moon. That is a good sign. All right, we're going to put the holes in the front cover now. And the way we're going to do that is to line them up with the holes in the back cover. Put that on top of there. Make sure everything's even. I'm going to press that down. Make that look neat. And let's see. The cat did not swallow this rubber band. Yeah, good. So another $600 vet bill avoided. And we're going to line this up. Make sure that it's not in the way of anything. Use the back cover as a guide for the front cover. And start poking holes. And just check to make sure they kind of went through. All right, I am free to proceed at will. Look at that. The holes are right next to the 3/4 moon. Oh, the book is speaking to me. This is going to work. This is going to be a good thing. There we go. And all of those, because using duct tape, those holes will kind of seal up around the thread that we're going to use, the bookbinding thread. So I'm just going to make sure, again, that the top is the top and that the bottom is the bottom. That east is east and left is left. I don't know how that goes. All right, so in part 2, we will bind the books together, sewing them. That'll be nice. Then we're going to, of course, we'll add the covers. That'll be part of that. And we will do the finishing touches on them. So I'm just going to make sure that these stay together. That stays neat. There we go. And I will see you all in part 2. Woo-hoo-hoo.